Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this session of the ISKI Certification Days. My name is Debbie Archer and I'm your host for this session. Delighted to have with me Clive Bates from Planet Testing and also a member of the TMMi Foundation. Very much looking forward to Clive's presentation about the rise of TMMi, and I know it'll be full of really interesting and exciting information. Just quickly, some of the logistics for today. If you've got any comments or anything you'd like to ask, please do use the comments box, and then at the end I'll actually ask Clive the questions. So please don't be shy and come forward. I know Clive is keen to answer the questions that you have. Not going to waste any more time and pass straight over to Clive and say, let's hear all about TMMi and some useful information. Thanks, Clive.
Thanks very much, Debbie, and welcome everyone to this presentation. I've called it the rise of TMMi specifically because I want to take you through a brief history of TMMi, the model itself, a few of the generic benefits some of the companies have actually experienced, the growth currently seen in TMMi, and then have a look about how you can learn more and benefit from TMMi as an individual and as an organization. I guess the first thing would just be to briefly introduce myself. I'm a senior consultant with Planet Testing, and I've been involved in testing now for more than 30 years. And within Planet, I look after the training in the UK and also leading all the TMMi work that was being delivered. I'm a TMMi lead assessor, a TMMi test process improver, which I'll explain shortly, a TMMi trainer, and that's for both the TMMi professional and the assessor lead assessor course. I'm a chair of the TMMi accreditation, so I get involved in processing all the applications from all the assessors, lead assessors, the accredited service providers, and the certified companies that come in to the TMMi Foundation. I'm also director of accreditation for UK ITB, and I've been involved in the certification since it first started with the original ISA Foundation certificate, which was back in about 1996. Planet, the company I work for, we're registered with the TMMi Foundation as an accredited service provider, so assessment service provider. So we will actually deliver the assessments for organizations. We're also a recognized training provider, and we have accredited lead assessors and assessors in the UK and Australia. So first of all, a simple history, if it is simple, on TMMi. So the TMMi Foundation was actually first launched back in September 2005 at the ICS Test UK conference. That conference actually had a track that was focused on TMM, and there were 2 case studies being presented from organizations on how they benefited from those assessments. There was then a tutorial delivered by Brian Wells, who was the then chair of the TMMi Foundation, and he gave information on the background to the model and looking forward at the structure and the aims of the foundation. Today, we've got a wealth of information on the TMMi website, which you can see shown below, and there's loads of documentation and the model itself that you can download. Now, the model itself has got a good pedigree, as I call it. It's got roots in the original TMM, the Test Maturity Model, the ICQB, IEEE, Capability Maturity Model Integration, so CMI, testing surveys, and many different industry best practices. And it was released back in 2010. Since the model has been established, it's been adopted around the world, and it's already been translated into Chinese, French, Spanish, Portuguese, all done by local chapters, which I'll explain shortly. Now, the model has fundamentally remained the same and is free to download along with all that other supporting documentation. And we've got the main reference model, which is now version 1.2, But the only enhancements over earlier versions is really a tidying up of the actual document. There's no real fundamental changes. So it's been well established, well used by many organizations around the world. IEEE created a paper last year where they actually reviewed different test processes, test process improvement models. And based on that paper, TMMi actually came out as a world leading model by quite a large margin, with TPI coming to second place. So it is very clear that it is now being identified as a world leading model for test process improvement. I also mentioned CMMi as a source, but it complements CMMi very, very well, and they can be undertaken independently, or they can be done together. If you're familiar with CMMi, you will also be familiar with the structure of the TMMi framework, because it follows on in a very, very similar way. Now, whilst TMMi started its life focused on waterfall and V-model, it must be understood that it's not a prescriptive model which says this is what you must do. It is a framework, it's a guide, and it's to help organizations to understand how it can be applied against their organization, irrespective of the market sector that they're in, but also against different development lifecycle models. So it does work very well as it is against Agile, but there was a desire to be a little bit more specific about how the framework could be used in an Agile project. So in 2017, the document TMMi in the Agile World was first launched to explain how we can interpret TMMi in the Agile situation. And that's since been updated, the latest version just coming out this year in 2020. So rather than create just one document with everything in it, it was felt more appropriate to have the reference model, but with a specific document talking about TMMi in the Agile world and the Agile side. Now, the model itself, it's made up of these 5 process areas. I'll just quickly run through them. Many of you may or may not be familiar with these. But we've got the 5 levels, where we've got level 1 is the initial level. And this is really where majority of organizations, the last count, it's about 60% of organizations are still at this level. And what this means is that we are doing ad hoc testing. We are very reliant on good people to do a good job. But if those people leave, then we may start to suffer with the performance of the testing that we're doing. Level 2, we're covering test policy and strategy, test planning, monitoring control, test design execution, and the test environment. And we're able to look at the processes that are held within projects. Now, it's recognized that it may well be that different projects have different processes, but they still have processes. And therefore, at level 2, we can actually assess a project, but a project only. When we're moving up to level 3, then we're looking at being institutionalized. And that means that the way that we're operating and we're using our processes is much more consistent across the whole organization. And this includes now other areas like the test organization, the structure of what the test team looks like, the test training program, the life cycle and how it integrates into the development life cycle. We're looking at non-functional testing and peer reviews. So when we're getting to level 3, we are now including what's actually happening at level 2, and we're wanting to make sure that the processes that we have are consistent across all of the projects. Now, there is more detail, obviously, that we can add into this, but the main thing is that we're operating in the same way, but there is an ability to put in some sort of tailoring guidelines to recognize that not all projects are exactly the same. So it's looking at how can we legitimately move away from the defined processes without compromising the work and the quality that we're actually delivering. Up to level 3 is basically all the testing activities and the testing work that we're doing. And then above that, level 4 and level 5, we're starting to add the management support on top of the good testing. So we're looking at level 4 about organizational metrics. So we're looking at the organizational test measurement. How good are we as an organization, and how do we measure it? We're looking at the product quality evaluation, how we evaluate the quality of the applications and the deliverables. And we're also including advanced reviews, which is where we're trying to now link up the work on peer reviews, the static testing activity, to help us direct the dynamic testing we're doing. And we're using it by the measurement of the quality of the reviews and the risks. Then we go on to optimization, where we're looking at defect prevention, wanting to try to avoid making the same mistakes on future projects. So we've got to identify the root cause of any defects that we have and put in strategies for removing those for future projects. So there's a lot of root cause analysis in that. We've got test process optimization, which is how we can actually, as an organization, our testing organization, improve what we're doing, not only with our test processes, but maybe through the introduction of new techniques or tools to help us improve what we're doing. And then we're bringing in some statistical analysis leading to the quality control of our testing to help us understand the quality of that testing and help us make it much more predictable. So there's a lot of areas to go through, and the framework itself goes obviously into much greater detail, which is covered on the training courses. But bearing in mind, the framework itself is something like 226 pages long. There's a lot of information in there, should you want to dive down and get a little bit more information. So there is like a natural break at level 3. That's I guess the largest piece of work when we're looking at the 10 process areas. And if you're doing a good job in some of those, that they're probably touching some of the areas at level 4 and level 5 as well. So that's a very quick run through what the model looks like and what it covers. I could go into greater detail on it, but it would just take up the rest of this session. So when organizations are having assessments, they're obviously wanting to look at the benefits as well. And this year there was a survey which is started for, and over 150 companies were surveyed where they've been using TMMi. And there's been so far an excellent response rate of over 50%. And this is giving us the information at the moment to say the benefits that these organizations are having from being involved in TMMi. This will be updated because the survey is only recently closed. So there will be an update to this once that the latest data has been analysed and built into the graph here. Now, what you can see here is the percentage of respondents from that survey talking about the benefits that they've had. And it's interesting to note that, you know, even at the lowest level, 40% of respondents have seen benefits, which in this case has been to accelerate software delivery. But the greatest benefit has been to be able to enhance the software quality, reducing product risks, increasing test productivity, and improve the test engineering discipline. But, you know, those are like the top 4. And I think this is a really powerful message to understand about how TMMi can help organizations and give them a focus on certain areas. And it's helping to make organizations much more leaner, much more effective and efficient in the way that they're doing their work. Now, it would be lovely to get some detailed information and benefits from organizations about how they're benefiting from TMMi. Unfortunately, we have a problem trying to get too much detailed information because customers don't really want to share their dirty laundry in public and tell them basically, how bad they were before they had a TMI assessment and did the process improvements, and saying, hey, look how good we are now. So people don't like to sort of say how much they've improved. But there is some anecdotal evidence that we have been able to gather over the years from some of the assessment service providers who've been able to gather this information. There's not a lot of detail in here because it's obviously to protect the information and the customers themselves. But you can see, there's a UK government department at the top there where they said by getting to TMI level 3, they were able to make 40% savings. There's a bank that saved 8% of their entire IT budget and improved the development output by 12%. There was an insurance company reporting saving close on £500,000 on a £2 million project. A retailer saving 12% on each project. Test services company increasing their test efficiency by 8%. And an embedded software company improving their defect detection rate from 78 to 96%. So these are some sort of generic things which are available, and hopefully we can try to get some more detailed information from organisations that have had an assessment and they're willing to share that information with us. But you won't see anything sort of published at the moment, unfortunately. In terms of the numbers and the growth of TMMi, I've put up here a number of key numbers for you. These are based as of, just a couple of days ago. And we can see that so far we've got, 1,178 certified professionals doing the TMI professional course. We've got 2,724 members. Now, it's free to join as a member. Just go to the TMMi website and click on the link to join. And from there, you'll be able to get copies of the newsletters. And you'll also, if you want to get involved in TMMi, this is the first route to joining us if you wish to. There's also 52 active certified organizations. We've got 25 accredited lead assessors, 48 accredited assessors. So there's a total of 73 at the moment, and these are all global. So both for the certified organizations and the assessors, it's literally global. There are 15 test process improvers. We've got 20 TMI local chapters worldwide, and we've got others in progress at the moment. And there are 17 assessment service providers also around the world. Now, all of these, we're seeing a steady increase in all these numbers. And in fact, I've got actually now 4 more applications for certified organizations that are literally just come in. One of them probably about 15 minutes before I came on this presentation. And there's another ASP to join and another 2 lead assessors to come in. So these numbers are constantly growing. In terms of the TMI professional by country, which is, as of June this year, you can see where the split is, and it is literally internationally recognized. And not long ago, China actually overtook the UK in terms of the number of people who are certified TMI professionals. So I hope you find that interesting, where we are with numbers. And I say it is constantly being updated. Some of these numbers are shown on the TMI Foundation website, so you can keep a track on them. In terms of the trends, this is a very simple couple of charts just to show that the number of TMI formal assessments is increasing. And just in 2020 alone, we've seen a 30% growth in formal assessments. And with the new companies where I've got to process them, that's increasing all the time. The number of TMI professional exams, we've seen a rapid growth there of 55%, so more. And got still some time to go this year, so we will see an increase in those numbers still. Now, I personally find this all really encouraging, given the growth of these in the current climate. And to me, this is actually a great opportunity for organizations to get their house in order, as I call it, to review their processes and to improve them where it's necessary, to make them themselves, leaner and more effective and efficient, so that they'll be on the front line of the starting gun. The front line of the starting gate when the economy starts to bounce back again. So they're going to be in a very good position to surge forward. I mentioned about local chapters, and this slide just gives you an idea where they are located around the world. It is another area of growth, and a local chapter is basically a group which is affiliated to the local ISTQB board, and their focus is to grow the awareness of TMMi in their region. It's also to identify possible new assessment service providers, to identify new training providers, to deliver training, to identify organizations that want to take the benefit of having a TMI assessment and the training as well. So they've got actually quite a key role in helping to grow the TMI in their region. There are currently 20 TMI chapters, and there's about nearly another 10 that are in discussions at the moment. But some of those local chapters will actually cover more than one country. So in the UK, for example, we've got the UK ITB, which stands for the UK and Ireland Testing Board. We've got a local chapter over here, and that covers both the UK and Ireland. So that's one chapter covering the two countries. And there's a couple of others like that around the world. So overall, there's about 25 countries, I reckon, which are currently served by a local chapter. The TMI Foundation has a very strong board and management executive, and new initiatives are always being considered. The latest one was the test process improver, which you can see on the left-hand side of this chart. And this was founded to recognize those people where they want to where organizations want to improve their level of test maturity using TMI model by having a certified test process improver in place. And this is somebody who is TMI professional qualified. They hold either the assessor or the lead assessor certification, and they've got at least 2 other ISTQB certificates on those beyond ISTQB Foundation. So they are a well-rounded, knowledgeable person, and they're able to help organizations to implement process improvements in their organizations. So those people who are certified as a test process improver are also listed on the TMI Foundation website, and to get an application form or to find more about it, you can go to the website and also go via ISKI to get the information. On the other side, to be assessors, you need to hold the TMI professional course and the ICQB Foundation certificate, and then and you get the professional certificate by taking the course and passing the exam. From that, you can then go to become an assessor and a lead assessor. So you go and have some assessor training, and you can then apply to be an assessor, which is valid for 3 years. If you want to become a lead assessor, you also have to do the assessor training, lead assessor training. You also have to hold the ICQB Advanced Test Manager certificate, and also some practical experience in running assessments, and then you can apply to become an accredited lead assessor. And I say both of those are valid for 3 years. So the TMI Foundation not only came up with the test process improver, but also coming up with the career path for those who want to get involved in TMI and TMI assessments. Now, the types of assessments and work that can be delivered Planet, we focus on four really. The informal assessments and the formal assessments are those that are the TMMi assessments themselves, but additional work we deliver to complement those within Planet is the process improvement work and also what you call the annual appraisal. So an informal assessment is basically where an assessor will come in and understand where your organization is in relation to the TMMi model up to a specific TMMi maturity level. It's based basically on interviews and to identify what's working well and what gaps there are and what improvements you need to do if you're wanting to meet a particular maturity level against the model. From that, we run process improvement work. We run a workshop with the client. We go through the areas that are working well, but in particular, we're focusing on those that need to have improvements. And this is to either create a process from scratch or to refine one. And we help deliver those if it's necessary, or guide the client on how to do that. And so we can undertake the improvement work and then help bring that into use into the organization. The formal assessments, these are the ones which are valid for 3 years, and it's run by a lead assessor and an accredited assessor. And your organization is going to be certified against a specific level of maturity against the framework. And if you want to know which organizations have had certifications, formal assessments, they're all listed on the TMMi Foundation website. You can go down, it's all public information, and you can see what level they're at. And it's looking at not just the company, but also the operating unit specifically. So from a formal assessment, we can either do the whole company or we can come down to an actual program. Then once an organization's had a formal assessment and been certified, it is valid for 3 years, after which you need to recertify. Now, as time goes by in organizations, sometimes the use of the processes can slip a little bit as staff change, or they maybe get a little bit lax on some of these areas. And when it comes to recertification, it's another full assessment to make sure things are being used. And so to make that easy for organizations, we do what we call the annual appraisal, which is a short piece of work for 2 or 3 days, where we just go and verify that the processes that you've got in place are still being used and applied, so that it makes a recertification process a lot easier. If there are any areas where it's starting to slip a little bit or not being applied, then it's a good opportunity just to basically pull your socks up again and say, right, let's get these back into proper use. So those are the main pieces of work that we deliver. We also do the training. I regularly deliver the TMMi training courses in UK, Europe, and international. I do them as live online courses. I ran one just last weekend for a client overseas. But it's really popular running them as live online courses. And, I get people from different countries coming in on the same course. I remember one in particular where I had somebody from Singapore, Croatia, Norway, Germany, and the UK all at the same time. And it makes it so much easier for people to join on the course. They don't have to have the travel into a particular classroom now. And the quality of the training and the pass rates are certainly equal to the face-to-face type courses as well. So those are very popular. The courses are stepping stones towards becoming an accredited assessor. And the TMMi professional course, I say, is a 2-day course, and it leads to getting your TMMi professional certificate. And it's an exam at the end of the course, 40 questions, multiple choice. And by passing that exam, you can then become TMMi professional certified. I'm actually running my next course now on the 3rd and 4th of December. So if you're interested in joining on that course, then obviously just let me know. The TMI Assessor and Lead Assessor course I run is a 4-day course, and it's a very practical course, and it's a way for people to get experience in doing the interviews against a framework. And it's where the whole thing really comes to life, because it's all very well doing the theory on the professional course, but when you're actually there in front of people and asking some questions, the whole model comes to life, and it helps you have a much better understanding on how the model is put together, but also how to ask questions of people and to check that things are being done. On completion of that course, and if you hold the TMI professional certificate and other criteria being met, you can then actually apply to become an accredited assessor, and then you can get your name put up on the TMMi Foundation website. You are then able to run informal assessments yourself if you want to against a framework. It doesn't give you a method to do the assessments, but it gives you the knowledge on what you're looking for. The other thing I do is also bespoke presentations to senior staff and management about TMI if they're thinking about bringing it into use in their organization. They may not be 100% sure what it is and how it can help them. So I do the presentation, which is bespoke to each client to meet their needs, just help them understand what it is and what benefits it could bring to their organization. So that's looking at the assessments and the training that's available. From there, we've got the process improvement work. Now, the TMI talk about the ideal model, which is this model that we can see here, which was based on the model from Edward Deming, and it's based on his plan, do, check, act cycle. And what this is looking at is saying, once we've understood that there's a need to have some changes, some improvements brought into use, we need to have some sort of assessment, TMI informal assessment, to understand where we are now and understand where we want to get to. And then this model takes you through a structured approach to identifying what those changes are, coming up with the solutions, and then implementing them, and then learning from that before we go around the loop again. So in Planet, we apply this as a model. When we do improvements, we follow this because it's got a good structure to it, and there's a framework that we can follow. When we're doing process improvement work, we've actually got TMI professional staff. They're all qualified, and they're based in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, and they can all help organizations with their processes to refine them or develop them as necessary, so they meet the requirements of the TMI Foundation. And then once we've done this and we work with you to help understand what's needed, we can help then embed those processes into your organizations. So it's running the training and the mentoring of the people to bring those processes into use, and also establish a process to help ensure that these stay with you and with the organization once we leave you. And all the work we're doing is monitored and supported by the TMI lead assessors. So there's a good support network that we have in place there. So if you're wanting any more information about TMMi, want any information about training courses, curious about how to run assessments in your organization and what they can give you, or you need a bespoke and focused presentation about TMI, anything TMI or Planet related, then there's my email address, and please do get in touch with me. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time and for listening to this. I hope you found it useful to give you a little bit of background about TMI and how it's currently growing across the world. There's a lot more that we can add on this, but time is short. So if you do want to explore this anymore, then please get hold of me. There's my email address again. Thank you very much. So I'll hand back to Debbie for see if there's any questions.
Oh, thank you, Clive. Always informative and very, very interesting. I do have a lot of questions. Interestingly, I've had people emailing me and personal messaging me. I was trying to say, please ask in the comments. Go through some of these. Some of them I think you've almost answered with some of what you said. First off, I had a query. Can you help me create the business case to my management team regarding being TMMi accredited? And I think you talked about bespoke presentations, but is there anything else you can help do with regard to business case for going forward?
I've done this a few times, and in fact I was doing this for a company only a matter of about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So yes, we can certainly have a conversation about what the objectives are for having a TMI assessment. I think that's probably the key thing to understand why you want to have this, and what level you're looking at. And we'll have a discussion with you about why that is the level you're looking for, to make sure it's the appropriate level that you want. And then we'll just have a chat about how we can take this forward. But we can certainly help you with the business case, give you an idea of the effort and the costs involved in this. It's difficult at this stage to say what the effort is to put the processes right and getting the right processes in place, because you need to understand where you are before you can do that. But yes, we certainly help with the business case. That's no problem at all. Just contact me.
So you mentioned that there's a formal and an informal assessment. You alluded to cost just now. Can you tell us how long an informal or formal assessment would take, and also is there any estimate of cost?
That's a good question as well. The cost and the effort, it depends on a number of factors. Firstly, what level of maturity you're going for, what type of assessment you're going for, whether it's a formal or informal assessment, how much of the organization is going to be assessed. Is it the whole company? Is it a division? Is it a country? Or is it just a program? So, looking at the scope of that. What sort of number of projects you got in there, and how many life cycles you've got? Because one of the things is that, if you're doing, let's say, the V model, and you're also got projects running agile, we would need to assess projects from both the V model and agile if we're looking at a level 3, to make sure that you've got the processes in place. So what I can do is, if you're interested in that, an idea of the effort, I have a series of questions that I can send out to you. And if you just give me those answers, I'll be able to give you a good indication of the time and the costs associated with doing that. If you're just wanting for a very, 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 very rough rule of thumb, if you're just looking at something like level 3, and it's one organization, one location, and one type of life cycle, you're probably looking at 7 to 10 days, just off the top of my head. But it's easier if you answer these specific questions, then I can give you a more focused and detailed breakdown.
That's wonderful. A question I think is probably for me, regarding the TMI exam and certification. Yes, it's available as a remote exam. As Clive mentioned, Planet, as an example, are providing the learning live online, and the exam, yes, is available as a remote proctored exam from ISQI, so you don't need to worry about being in a classroom or a test centre. If you contact www.isqi.org, you'll be able to find a little bit more information about that. We call it flex exams. Quite a few questions for you, Clive. Growth in China and the UK, some impressive figures there. I've asked what's been driving that growth, particularly in China.
Yes, it's really interesting because there's a lot of local banks taking assessments out there. Also, the local chapter in China, if I'm honest, is extremely active. They've done a number of conferences. I've been out there and presented at the Chinese conference, the local chapter, as has Jeff Thompson, and Eric van Veendal has recently been involved in one as well. So they're very active. I think also that you've got a number of provincial banks and local banks, and I think that when one bank gets to a level 5, I think there's a little bit of competition amongst others where they say, oh, they've got little level 5, I need to do the same. So it's sort of rolling a little bit. And there are also a number of assessment service providers in China. But I think, there's a number of factors, I think, which have helped that growth. But they're certainly very interested in it.
Yeah, we see that we do a lot of work with companies in China delivering the exam, as you're aware. One of the things that I'm always interested in is whether there's a drive from government also in China that when they go, they're looking for organizations to work for them. Are they looking to have the level of maturity assured with regard to testing?
I don't know about China. I know that in Malaysia, they had a lot of work out there, which was driven by the Malaysian government. Yeah. Where they were basically saying to organizations, if they wanted to tender for bids from the Malaysian government, they had to be up at TMMi level 3 in order to bid, because it's actually giving to an external person a level of comfort that you have been independently assessed and certified at a level, of maturity, and therefore you've got processes that will support that. I've got a number of anecdotal stories where that sort of been involved in that sort of experience in different countries, not just in China or not just in Malaysia, but yeah, around the world. And it can certainly be a way that it is driving the business.
Very positive. Back to remote, how can a TMMi assessment be done while we're working remotely at the moment?
So we do it through Zoom, and we just do the interviews through Zoom. Works very, very well. I wouldn't do it just as a voice interview. You want to see people's faces and expressions. So doing that works extremely well. And because the other thing is that when we do formal assessments, we're using different sources of information. We're using information not just from the interviews themselves, but we're looking at evidence of compliance by seeing the artifacts. So any process documents, completed documents from the projects, they have to come through to us as well. Sometimes there's been a local assessor in the country sitting in with the client, with me being remote. That's quite a common one as well. So there are different ways to do it, but it works absolutely fine.
Perfect. And possibly a good time to do it, actually, while people are a little bit refocused on things at the moment.
Yes. Well, as I say, I think this is a great time to basically get things organized in your company, so that when things start to come back on stream, you're in a very good position to move forward.
That's good advice. Very good advice. What other qualifications do you need to become a TMMi assessor?
So TMMi assessor, you need to have the ICQB Foundation, the TMMi Professional, and you have to have taken some assessor training. That way it gives you the experience to become an assessor. You can also, if you hold other qualifications, like if you're like a Scampi assessor, we can take that on board as well. That's not a problem. And we have got people who are qualified, in CMMI as assessors, and then we can just basically take them as TMMi assessors because of the link between the two models. To be a lead assessor, you need to hold the same qualifications as the assessor, plus do the lead assessor training and hold the ICQB Advanced Test Manager. You also need to have a certain number of hours of practical work in an assessment. So ideally you want to be mentored by somebody who can guide you to get the experience, so you can then apply to be a lead assessor subsequently.
Wonderful. One last question was about ISKI and TMMi, our relationship. So TMMi have appointed ISKI as one of the exam providers for the scheme. So as I mentioned earlier, the certification is available on the ISKI website as well as ISTQB. And I have to say, I absolutely adore working with Clive and indeed Planet, and it's been wonderful today. I've got a couple of thank yous here, Clive, from Julio, and I'll show you this one from Ronald, who I know very, very well. And Ronald has just given us power to the elbow, so absolutely thank you for that, Ronald.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. Clive, thank you so much for your time and for the presentation. And if I have any more questions come through, I'll pop those over to you, and then perhaps we can get back directly to people. And
Indeed.
Just to say to everybody tuned in at the moment, the ISQI certification days will continue. We've got more sessions happening throughout today, tomorrow and Friday. I'll be hosting a really exciting session later on with Leanne Howard from the Australian New Zealand Software Testing Board about the Agile Continuum. So I hope some people will join me for that later on. And again, Clive, thank you so much. Have a smashing evening all.
I will do, yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Take care.
Clive, take care. Bye.
Bye.